So just how marvelous is the new Captain Marvel movie? We're going to break down my thoughts right now. Before we get right into the review, I just want to make sure that everybody knows this is going to have spoilers. So if you haven't seen Captain Marvel, this is your warning. So you don't feel like, I spoiled the movie for you. You had your chance. Turn back now. The movie starts with Carol Danvers, played by Brie Larson, as a member of the Kree race. Caught in an ongoing war with the Skrull race, Carol finds herself on Earth, where she runs into Nick Fury. And with his help, she's able to decipher the truth behind her past. It eventually become Captain Marvel. So how is Brie Larson as Captain Marvel? I'm sure that's what a lot of people want to know before they go see the movie. And I have to say that just judging by the trailers, I think the main thing that people maybe didn't like, and I kind of can agree, is her face. That may sound a little weird, but this doesn't give a lot of emotion when she's acting. And I don't know if that's really how Brie Larson always is when she's in her movies or her TV shows or her acting, whatever it is. But that's probably the main thing that I got. Now, when you actually are watching the movie, it isn't as bad. It isn't as, stagnant, but she just comes across as very not RBF, but, very just always serious, But when you actually get to watch the movie and see her interactions with Jude Law, Nick Fury, some of the Skrull race that she ends up fighting, it's not that. She's very playful and sarcastic and jokeful, and I think that made me like her a little bit more, after I got to actually see the movie and see her not be so still-faced from the trailer. I liked the character more. I thought it made her more relatable. Now, do I think it's as good as Robert Downey Jr. or, some of the other characters? It just, who have more of a natural charisma and personality to them? No. So in that sense, I think she's able to sell the role fairly well. Basically what I can get from it is that Captain Marvel is essentially the Superman of Marvel. I mean, that's a really close comparison. So if I was to say it that way, then I guess it's kind of on point. So, I mean, if you take Clark Kent, who doesn't really understand Earth jokes and, the ways of our humor, then I guess that would kind of make more sense. The way he acts is kind of like the way she acts. He's able to understand and comprehend and make some jokes, but and I guess to her credit, she doesn't, in the time of the movie, she doesn't really understand who she is fully. She believes she's a part of the Kree race, but she feels like she belongs or has had memories from somewhere else. And so maybe that messes up with their personality. I don't know. But I would have to say overall, I think they didn't make it. It's not as bad as everybody made it out to be. Brie Larson does play the character very well. And I think that overall she sells it. And towards the end of the movie, you totally see her as Captain Marvel. And you're just can't wait to see her, in Endgame, and there's Captain Marvel 2 or, whatever they come out with. Now, it's no surprise that Samuel L. Jackson is once again in a Marvel movie. I feel like this guy he's played Nick Fury to the fullest. And what I like about this version of him in the movie is aside from seeing the very beginnings of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Coulson and, all those guys, you kind of get to see Nick Fury a little bit more vulnerable. I don't know if that makes any sense, but, in the other movies, he's already got the eye patch and he's a little older and he's seen so much that it makes him have more of a guard up. And I feel like with this movie, doesn't have that guard all the way up. And so with his interactions with Captain Marvel, he very much, you can see the bond that they have between the two of them and the jokes that they have with each other. And there's a part in the movie where they're washing dishes and he's singing to her and, she cracks a joke, but it's just that, or his interactions with Goose, the cat. I don't know if I would expect that from Nick Fury, flash forward all the way to the Avengers movie. I just don't know if I would expect that, but it was very refreshing, and it was kind of cool to see another side to Nick Fury. Now, probably one of my favorite characters of the movie, even though I don't think they really had that big of a part overall, but it was Maria and Monica Rambeau. And of course, in the comics, in this movie, they're just, basic humans, and Maria is best friends with Carol Danvers and was with her in the Air Force, and Monica is Maria's daughter. And of course, in the comics, they eventually turn out to be superheroes, Maria turning out to be Photon. These two characters really help solidify who Carol Danvers was when she was back on Earth before she was, lost her memory. And I really like the Maria character very much because I feel like it's kind of hard to explain, but I would think of it as more like, so you just found out that your best friend who you thought that died in a plane crash actually didn't die. And she also is a superhero, She takes that in stride. And instead of it being like, what can I do to help the cause? She's like, that's my best friend. And I was with her in the beginning and I'll be with her in the end, that kind of thing. And so she just jumps right into action, and she's with Nick Fury and she's flying the Quinjet and she's shooting down, alien. And I mean, she's doing all this stuff. So it was really cool to see, kind of this character just kind of be there, be caring, supportive, and just kind of jump into this, yeah, let me tag along and help take down the Kree, all this kind of good stuff. So I really enjoyed that. And I liked the relationship that her daughter Monica had with with Carol Danvers. It was able to kind of give Brie Larson a little bit more emotion to work with in the movie. Seeing her interactions with Maria and Monica, it was really good. And I feel like I hope we see more of them in, future movies. I hope this isn't just like a one and done, So I hope we see more of them and maybe even more of Monica, maybe as, the superhero she's going to turn out to be. We'll have to kind of wait and see, maybe in Captain Marvel 2. But overall, I think those two were probably some of the characters I enjoyed the most out of the movie. Now, as far as some of the other characters that were in the movie, most of the supporting cast, we had Jude Law, we had Hema Chan, we had Annette Bening, Jimon Hunosu, hope I'm pronouncing that right. It was really kind of interesting. This is cool. I liked Mar-vell. I mean, in the comics, she is a he. There you go. Not really supposed to be a she, but he's a he. And they flipped it for the movie. And it didn't matter really. I thought that Annette Bening really sold the role. She was a really good mentor to Carol Danvers, and you could see the relationship that they had, and it was very genuine. When you find out that she is not Dr. Wendy Lawson, and you find out that she's Mar-vell, and you kind of start finding out the truth as to why the Skrull are set up to be the enemies in the movie and what they're set up to be out for, supposedly. That's where the spoilers kind of come in. So you kind of get to find out that from the original flashback in the beginning of the movie where we have the crash scene and Mar-vell's been shot and it looks like a Skrull warrior is approaching, we actually find out that it's Jude Law's character. Surprise, surprise. He's actually the one that shot Mar-vell, and we find out that he is actually after this energy sequence that she's able to use to basically time, to time jump, I guess, this, space jump. This is where Captain Marvel gets her power. She shoots the ship, and the power, which we find out later comes from the tesseract, gets absorbed into her and basically knocks her out. And Jude Law, he kidnaps her and pumps her up with Kree blood and makes her believe that she's part of the Kree race and that she's been for so long and that they're out to kill the Skrull. And in reality, the Skrull is a galactic refugee who is trying to escape the Kree, and that would be Jude Law's character and all his little minions, and that also includes Ronan, the Accuser. So it's kind of interesting. Once you find all that out, kind of midway through the movie, you're kind of like, oh snap. A lot of people that are familiar with the character prior knew that was going to happen, but I know that there were a couple of people I've talked to that they just really thought, dang, I didn't see that coming. So it was kind of interesting to see, but I really liked all of the supporting cast. I don't think Lee Pace really had much to do in the movie. He's mentioned, he's seen in a couple of Obi-Wan Kenobi, hologram scenes, and you see him kind of towards the end, he thinks he's gonna be all big and bad, coming with a bunch of ships to destroy Carol Danvers and the Earth, but Carol Danvers shows her what she's got, what she's made of, and pretty much scares him away. So that's about it. So one character we need to talk about is Goose, which is a cat, and he's not really a cat. He's actually an alien. Now, this kind of reminded me of some Men in Black kind of stuff. More of the pug from Men in Black, who's really an alien. What's interesting about his character is he, aside from helping Nick Fury and Maria Rambeau fight off some of the Kree warriors by, I guess he's basically a squid or an octopus or something. And he basically just eats some of the Kree. Basically, in the movie, you find out that, as I said before, this energy force that we found out the Kree is actually out for is really made from the tesseract. It kind of got me thinking about the timeline for the tesseract, because we've seen it in a lot of Marvel movies now. It's going to kind of give like a brief breakdown of the tesseract and where it was, where it is, and where it's going. You know, we kind of already know where it's going, but it starts out in Asgard in Odin's chambers, and then it goes to Earth somehow with Hydra trying to get a hold of it, and that's where we meet it in Captain America, and eventually gets in the hands of Howard Stark. And then somehow, that's a long gap, that's like 1940s time, so between 1940s and 1980s, somehow ends up in the hands of Dr. Wendy Lawson, who's Annette Bening's character, who is Mar-vell. And of course, Goose eats it. It gets in the hands of Nick Fury, and Captain Marvel tells him just to keep it on Earth. You know, we get to see it in Thor again, and Nick Fury reaches out to the scientists in that movie to come out and check it out, and that's related up to Avengers with Loki trying to get it. And then, of course, we all know what happens, and we find out it's an Infinity War. So it's just kind of an interesting little kind of tidbit history of the Tesseract. I think knowing that Captain Marvel's powers come from the Tesseract, it's going to be really interesting to see what that does, you know, against Thanos. Because basically in this movie, it would seem like she has an uncontrollable amount of energy. Like, I'm not even sure that she's even tapped into her full potential. She doesn't really I mean, I've heard this from a couple of other reviewers that I've watched about this movie so far. You know, in the beginning of the movie, she seems like she always has to hold back, or she is holding back from her full potential. Once we finally get towards like the final act of the movie, she just kind of finally taps into it and instantly embraces it, but not fully having control. Like, it's kind of like an as she goes kind of thing. She's like, oh, I can do this, and then I can do that, and I guess I can do this too, you know, that kind of thing. And I don't know if that was the right way to go about it. I disagree with some of what the other people were saying about how it just seems like she just knew exactly what to do. I don't know that that was the case. I do think that she struggled a little bit. Like, she would shoot some people, and then she would knock her back, like, you know, recoil, or she was falling. You know, there's a part where she's falling from space, and she's kind of like, you know, says, I'm not going to freak out about it. And then that's when she activates powers and she's able to fly. So I think there's some instances where it is kind of like, maybe it's like a natural progression and this like kind of a instinct kicks in, you know, maybe that's how that works. But it's going to be interesting to see that, you know, what it's like when she, you know, finally meets Thanos. I mean, we're kind of skipping, you know, from the 90s all the way to now. And it's interesting to see what that's going to do against Thanos. I mean, he has a stone in his gauntlet, but if she's harnessing the full energy of it, I mean, that would make her a formidable foe. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, I'll touch on this just because it's been a lot of talk about the movie, and that is the feminist tones of the movie. I know that in the beginning of the marketing for the movie, Brie Larson was a real activist, you know, about all that kind of stuff. And I have to say that the movie does touch on that. I'm like, you do watch it, and you see that throughout her, you know, childhood and her young adult life, and even when she's trying to be part of the Air Force, that there's always been adversity and a male figure there to either tell her to be different, to not be as wild and carefree. You know, I got that from the movie. I don't think it was in such a way that was so radically feminist, if that's what everybody's trying to make it out to be. I didn't get that sense. Like, I wasn't like, wow, like she pretty much was like, guys suck. You know, I didn't get that at all. I think that was part of that was probably a little bit truthful at the time, especially the Air Force scene. Women weren't as progressive in military periods. So, I mean, a part of that was probably true. I know that she's been compared to Wonder Woman a lot because that also is a very, you know, could be seen as a very feminist movie. And I don't think that that's quite the same thing. I think Carol being on Earth and going through human interactions, I think just turns out to make her stronger versus Wonder Woman, who was solely raised by women and solely, you know, told that guys can't be trusted, and, you know, so on and so on and so on, and who has to learn that more of the human nature, you know, that's a little bit different. But I think with this one, you know, learning what she goes through and finding out her past and really seeing her character flesh out, especially the very last part where she's going to fight Jude Law again, and, you know, he's telling her, you know, I need you to control your emotions and stuff like that. She's just like, nah, dude, I got it. I don't need you anymore. You know, it was a very powerful message. And I mean, I walked away really thinking, that was a perfect message. You know, finally overcoming adversity and just learning to be you and not letting anybody tell you otherwise. You know, that was just it was a great message. And I don't know that it really needed all the controversial, you know, attention it got, but to me, it was a great message. And there was even a little girl in the theater after the movie was over, you know, she had to be like 7 or 8, but she was just all excited. She was like, "Oh my gosh, that was awesome. I can't wait to see Captain Marvel again." And her mom's like, "Well, good news. She's going to be in the next, you know, she's going to be in the Avengers movie." She's like, "Yay." You know, but I'm thinking like, it's kind of cool to see girls have just another character that they can look up to and try to mold themselves after, you know. It was really cool. And I hope that continues when she's in other movies. So for the ending, we of course find out finally why Nick Fury has the pager. So just like we think, it's just supposed to be for emergencies only, and she makes it to where it could reach in multiple galaxies, and so she gives it to him. And, you know, from that point, she basically goes off with the scroll to find, you know, their home, you know, better refuge for them, and to find the other scroll and to basically take down the Kree. Then we have the very end of the movie where Nick Fury is at his desk and he's typing up what is going to be known as his plans to make the Avengers. He's typing in the name of it, you know, I don't remember the exact name, something initiative, and he then sees a picture of Carol Danvers getting into her plane, and I think it says something like Carol the Avenger Danvers or something like that. And he, like, you know, the light bulb goes off and he's like, "That's it. That's what I'm going to call it." So he basically changed it to the Avengers Initiative, and it's basically named after her. And then we have the 2 end credit scenes, and I'm going to skip to the second one since it kind of goes in line with the ending of the movie. But we're back at Nick Fury's desk, and we see Goose jump on top of the desk, and he basically has a fur ball attack. And instead of coughing up a fur ball, he coughs up the tesseract. And it's like, da 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 da. And then we know what happens after that, you know, leading up into the basically the Avengers movie. Then we go up to the first end credit scene where we're back after Endgame, and we're at Avengers headquarters, and we have Captain America and the Hulk and Don Cheadle and you know, Black Widow. They're all there, and they're just pretty much watching the numbers of various companies, various countries. People just disappear. They're just falling. I mean, I guess this has happened right after Thanos is in the snap, and I guess not everybody has disappeared yet, but is in the process, as I'm guessing what is happening. And so they, I guess, come across the pager somehow that Nick Fury has activated to get a hold of Captain Marvel, and they have it like juiced up in this big like battery pack area, and they're waiting to see if they get a response back from the beacon, and eventually the beeper goes off, and they think, well, crap, it's died. When we have all this battery, how's it died? Just restart it. And when they turn around, you know, after looking at the battery and the pager, they find out that Captain Marvel is there, and she instantly asks, "Where's Nick Fury?" And that's it. So we know that, you know, she's been gone for, I'm guessing, over 20 years. I'm assuming they're going to tell her that Nick Fury has disappeared and who did it, but I don't know if that's really enough to get her angered up enough to like fight him. I know that they're going to say, "Hey, he's the villain," but she kind of went through this already once before, where she's dealing with people that she doesn't really know, and they're telling her this is the villain and yada, yada, yada. I'm sure she'll have some trust in them because they're Nick Fury's friends. What I think would be a more compelling thing is when she finds out that Maria and Monica Rambeau have been, you know, killed off or disappeared, and that'll give her more of a emotional, you know, want to fight, you know, against Thanos. So we'll have to wait and see, but it's gonna be a good movie. I'm looking forward to Avengers Endgame very, very much. So overall, I totally recommend Captain Marvel. I really enjoyed the movie. I know that it has 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, but overall, I would personally I'm gonna give it an A. I think it does have all that. I think I like movies that have a good message, and I think this is one of those that has that. And I feel like I walked away pumped up. I walked away like, "Dang, that's Captain Marvel." Like, I know some people are like, "Meh," you know, maybe a B, maybe a B plus, but no, I think I'm gonna give it an A. I think it checks off all the boxes for me. Let me know in the comments below what you think. If you liked my thoughts and opinions, make sure you give this video a like. Of course, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. And I'll see you guys at the next mashup.